Hello and welcome back to the Sex and Healing podcast. I'm your host, Erin Rebekah, and thank you so much for joining me as we take this wild ride together through the realms of sex and healing. I have a very exciting guest to share with you guys today, who today is also my first opportunity to get to meet her and to speak with her. So we are in this beautiful exploration together. But I first came across her on Instagram, and the second that I saw her, I knew that I had come across a very true, very authentic, very embodied expression of the divine feminine on the planet. So I'm super excited to introduce her to you today. She is the Pole Priestess, Rebekah. Welcome, Rebekah.
Hello, Erin. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be on this podcast with you and explore these issues and topics. And they're all things that I'm so passionate about.
And I know it's so obvious. And actually, I came across one post of yours and it was in Costa Rica. I'll share it with you after our recording. And it's ironic that now you're in Costa Rica again.
Oh, yeah.
But I saw that one post and that's when I started following you. And then after a couple of posts, I wrote to you. I should go back and read it again now, but I'm pretty sure I reached out to you just to say something similar. Like, I really see the goddess in you and thank you for what you do. I love having you on my Instagram feed. I've loved every post that you do. And I'm really fussy about that shit. There's a lot of stuff I don't like. Highly curated feed. And you get one of those prized positions in my world.
I'm so honored. Thank you so much, because I love your posts and everything that you've created over the years, and watching you develop what you've created lights up my feed too. So it's a huge honor to hear you say that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So would you like to share, people obviously have no idea what I'm talking about, but I get to watch you dance on Instagram and move your body in a way that's really, as an observer, a beautiful expression of your femininity. So do you want to share a little bit about your movement and what it is that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Pole Priestess, what is that, right? I am a pole dancer, and I teach sensual dance, pole dancing as a means of self-expression and a modality of healing and transformation. And I came to this expression myself as just a woman who was going through life with, there's so many ways to explain this, but, kind of like blinders on, or my life was a bit drab, I would say. I was living behind some kind of screen, I would say. And when, the very first time I discovered pole dancing with my friend, she was actually teaching, and I'd known her for years, and I'd seen her dance at events and things, and she was very free with her body. So when she invited me to her classes that she was finally getting together, it was all of that screen darkness just went blasting away. And I just felt so just free. And at the same time, just this animal was released this in my dance.
Wow.
Because part of her class is she had each student go and do a free dance, and that was so scary. I mean, up to that point, I was just shaking in my boots, I'm gonna have to get up in front of other all these women. But when I did, it was not that Rebekah who was sitting there oh, I'm so scared. It was something so deep and primal. It was and it's funny because later she actually said that she was afraid for me because I was so wild and there was not one hint of inhibition. It was this deep, angry, wild, sexual woman just shook loose. I mean, it was astounding. It was like an exorcism in a way.
Wow.
So I went and bought a pole that week, and I put it in my house.
She's on.
And I wasted no time.
I found myself.
This was it for me. So I just continued on. I would practice at home. I would go to my classes. But what opened up was something so powerful. I mean, I kind of bypassed the part of is this a stripper activity, or these kind of taboo elements weren't even in my consciousness. I was so hungry for this expression. Obviously, this is what was reflected in my dance and reflected in this incredible hunger to like finally feel this energy coursing through my body and expressing itself into the world. And it was extremely powerful. And what's ensued after this, getting into it and starting to refine my expression and starting to calm down a little bit in how I was dancing, I just discovered this incredible healing that started to happen because I was able to reflect to myself in these experiences of dancing what women typically experience when they're making love. So in that sexual space, in that like primal opening all your energy centers, right? Your heart and your pussy space and your just the expression of loosening up your body and getting juicy with your body and all of these things that you see about yourself when you're with a lover, I was able to see about myself alone with my pole. Wow. And it gave me the pause that we don't have in a lovemaking experience because we're with someone else. There's someone there. But in this experience, it was like, it was the universe. It was myself. It was my emotions and the feeling of safety to explore these emotions and these feelings and actually express it in this really beautiful physical expression. And so with all of these kinds of feelings and with this kind of revelation came a lot of intuitive, as they say, downloads of information about how to open my body, what these gestures meant, like these dance moves of opening your heart weren't just pushing your chest out or showing your breasts. It was about opening up and receiving energy from the cosmos, from the universe. And at the same time that I'm using these physical gestures to commune, like this intelligence, this greater intelligence is communing with me too. So the gestures of opening your heart, for example, is a gesture of opening and receiving, but it's also a gesture of expression. So the feminine, I've discovered, is both of this receptive quality, but also this expressive quality. So when you see like a woman opening her legs, or like in the dance, if you're like, opening your legs, like I think typically at our societal reaction is like, oh, she wants it, or she's gonna, like she's getting something. But actually, it's a really powerful expression as well. Wow. So these like, contracting and expanding movements are multifold. And I think with the energy of the feminine, it's both of these elements. And we're so trained as women to think that we're living in danger of some sort, like covering up and being small. And because what you're showing is attracting, right? So we always talk about the attractive element of the feminine, but what about the expressive, like that, like I'm showing my skin, I'm giving you something with this powerful energy. So with the pole dancing, which is also tied in with just sensual dancing in general, the movements for me have become this really powerful gesturing and dance with all that is. Wow. So that's a little bit of the intro to my journey and why this modality is so just deeply etched in my bones now. So I've pretty much, I've gone through different careers. At the time, I had been a fashion photographer. So I'd gone from being a visual artist and someone who was more of a voyeur about life, and creating beautiful imagery and just kind of showcasing like my deepest desires through my photography. Then moving into, I owned a cannabis business for a while, legal cannabis operation in California, but that was also like totally different part of my brain and self. But then when I discovered this dance piece, oh, like everything just went to the wayside, because all I still ever want to do is dance. And it's been like 10 years now.
Wow.
And I'm just as passionate about it. And it's taken, now I'm on a different page with why I'm passionate about it, because it's become I'm a different woman now. It's a different level of expression, but I'm still, it's so intrinsically part of my everyday.
Oh my God, I've got so much to say. Oh my God, I heard so many amazing things in there. But the thing that really stood out for me was, well, the first thing that came to mind was that first release of your primal nature. And I remember when that happened to me too. And it is fucking scary. I know why that lady was scared. It's such an uncontained force, the nature of it. And then we're so ill-equipped for dealing with it because it's been shut down for fucking centuries and taken from us. And that first explosion of it out really scared me too. Like, I remember feeling it. It was through a sexual experience with my partner at the time. And just like that animal, that raw, powerful nature. And I would consider myself a really powerful person. And I've just been toning it down for most of my life. Just like to not be the most powerful one in the room, to not be the biggest, strongest energy anywhere. So to be in a space where actually we can completely let go of this energy and let it out is like the most enlivening, liberating thing. At the same time, the most scary. Like you're jumping off a cliff and you have no idea what's there. You're just going into this completely uncontained feminine space, and it's amazing.
It is. And I think part of the element that's a bit scary is that we're so unused to feeling like that. We don't have mentors now people do pay women like us, for example, to guide them on these journeys. And but we don't have typically mothers and grandmothers who are like, okay, listen, you're actually this wild creature with these special powers.
Can you imagine our daughters? God bless, they'll have that from us, but I could not. That's so far from the reality of how I was raised. That will be amazing for the next generation of women to have so many empowered women like us raising them.
There are so many amazing little girls coming up right now, and it's taken generations, centuries of women, really, but like the last few generations have really pushed. And I think we're actually on the forefront of women who've been able and had the honor to embody the things that our mothers and foremothers have fought for. It's like this level of empowerment that we're talking about is so new, really. So the girls coming up after us are going to be able to take more of that on and really thrive, or have the opportunity to thrive in ways that even we don't have, because we're discovering this. This experience started for me when I was 30 years old. I'm 41 now. And, imagine if I'd had this experience when I was 18 or 20, where I would be now with my practice and just with my life, so it's really interesting to look at the history of women and to look at where we are now and what we're creating with really no mentorship, right? Following that instinct, following that primal woman that once you experience her in yourself, you have to follow the path because it's so mind-blowing. And it's an incredible initiation onto the path of like real divine feminine rising.
Yes, I completely agree with that word, initiation. And what I see in my clients and my friends who have also undergone, what happened when I first started having this awakening in myself is that other people started having their awakenings. People that were my mentors and guides were both like having sex, both men and women. And I was like, oh, sorry guys, like I'm just trying to process my own stuff here. And it's like setting off these bombs in everyone around me, which is amazing. But what I found is that there's a fear of like, if I let go of this control that I've had my whole life, if I've let go of this armor and this protection that I've carried myself with, I have no idea what I'm going to lose. I don't know if my relationship's going to stand that. I don't know if my families or society will accept me as this. But when you truly have forged that relationship with this part of yourself, you realize that it's not destruction. it's actually a force that's here to serve us greatly. And sometimes out of that can come some distraction or things that need to fall away from our life. But its inherent desire is not to ruin your life. That energy is here for our empowerment and creativity and growth and healing and transformation, as you said. So I think we're all a bit afraid of the unknown, but as we step more into it, we realize actually there's nothing to be afraid of. But
yeah,
the other thing that really stood out in your opening story, I had a sexual experience this week that was very intense, and I would also have called it an exorcism style, or sexorcism, I've been calling it. First,
I love that.
Channels at the front of my body in such a way, I wailed, so much emotion came out of me, and luckily my man is very, very equipped at holding me in that emotional space. He's unafraid of my emotional power. But there was such grief and sadness that I had got so closed without realizing. I almost forgot that I could be that open, because I haven't been in a sexual relationship for the last few months, and I haven't found a way to get myself there. And so to be cracked open was such a beautiful thing, and to feel that release. But it came again with this other side of the coin that was I don't want to feel disempowered waiting for someone else to show up in my life that can take me to these places that I can't go on my own. So to hear that you have had these experiences in your own sovereignty through your own connection with your body and the divine that can open you like that is fucking amazing to me.
Thanks. Yeah, it was amazing for me too. And it's really what I needed so much, because I have a background of sexual abuse, which put me into, at first, my response was to just be in very safe relationships. So I went through 2 long-term relationships that were that. They were a sanctuary. They were safe. They were sweet. But once I really felt the wild woman emerge, I needed more than that. And I got out of one of my long-term relationships, and I started to just let loose. And I got into some very hurtful situations because I was unskilled at wielding my energy. Yes. And I was carrying all of this trauma that I hadn't really addressed. And that was attracting people that were just really unsavory and some really heartbreaking experiences. And I was at this point when I discovered this reflection, I was like, oh, I need to go within. I need to go into this world where I am just dancing. I am being with my body. I'm reclaiming all of this power that I am. And I'm not wasting it on these frivolous lovers that just are taking advantage of me, that don't understand me, that are causing more shutdown. And one thing I realized about myself in my dance sessions is how sensual and how naturally sexual I was. And I didn't see it. I didn't fully understand my self-worth. So here I am going out into the world just being like, everything's great. But no, it really wasn't. I was walking around with this huge target on my head and things were not going well. So to have this magical space that I discovered where I could go into this laboratory of discovery and get into all these different archetypes of myself, which essentially are the archetypes of the goddess, right? I could be angry, I could be sexy, I could cry, I could masturbate, I could wear whatever I wanted or nothing or whatever. I had space to go mad and to discover myself in all of the multidimensionality that I am. And that set me free. It showed me who I was and what I was capable of. And I came into ownership of myself. And it was an extraordinarily powerful transformation.
Wow, that's amazing. What I really witness in you is I see all those expressions. I see all the different faces of the goddess in the different mood or the different energy or the different outfit that you wear when you dance. But what I love is that there's nothing to prove. You're not there to try and project an image to someone. You're not there to try and convince someone that you're this, or try and make people see that you're worthy, or make people see that you're sexy, or make people see you're sensual. You just are that thing, and it's emanating from you in that effortless place. And that, I think, is what we can all aim for in the maturation of our feminine expression, is like, this isn't for anyone else, but it's just the truth of me in this moment. And it's well boundaried and it's fully expressed. It's not protected. It's not being pushed out upon anyone else. It's just this beautiful, glowing reflection of your truth in that moment.
Thank you so much. My philosophy around my my work in teaching and my work in just dancing, performing when I do, and just doing my own dance sessions at home is to tap into that flow state, to come into this like, really flow state is the description for it. Just the through me, opening up, allowing what comes to come without restricting it. And what I mean by not restricting it is in the moment, not preconceive what I'm doing too much, or judge myself too much, or be in my mind. I think one of the great reliefs about the dance in general is also getting out of your mind a little bit, coming into your body, allowing the energy of how you're feeling and what's happening in the room to guide you. And that mentality flows all the way to even when I post on Instagram. I don't think about it so much as like, oh, this is a great photo, or this is what I want to share exactly like this. I just kind of make videos and take pictures and do what I do. And then when I'm inspired by something that I see and I feel like it makes sense to share it, then I share it. But I try to really live from that feminine principle of just allowing what has that intuitive energy to it to be shared. And I think that's a really important feminine principle, because as you were saying about rescheduling some of your interviews, I think it's really important to look at what we're producing and how we're interacting with the world and feel out whether that makes sense for what's happening in our own lives and what's happening in the greater world. And I think there's a way to do that without being flaky, or just without being lazy about it and thinking like, oh, well, I'm an amazing woman over here, I don't have to do that thing. You're still showing up in integrity, but you're showing up intuitively as well. And sometimes that is changing the date or shifting something around. And I find a lot of times when I do that, it makes so much sense for other people down the road. They're like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't come up because of this or that, or I'm so glad that you didn't do that day because of this other reason. So there's like a greater stream of intelligence that we tap into and that we live by, when you really start to strengthen that sense.
Yes.
So I appreciate
beautiful butterfly. Just this big butterfly just came up to my window. I was dancing all around the screen.
Oh my God.
Sharing that too. Yeah.
That's magical.
Yeah. But I completely agree. There's this beautiful there's an ease that comes. And actually I think I might have shared this story in the podcast already. When I was living in Kauai and I was meditating, and the turtles came into my meditation and they said, Erin, really like chastising tone. They're like, Erin, we don't swim around the planet. We get carried. We get in the stream and we're carried. And it's your time now to get in the stream. Wow. And that was me hustling, like me having an idea in my mind of what it meant to be a successful coach online, me having in my mind of what I think would make me feel safe. Like everything in my mind was making me push. And when you're outside of that stream, that natural flow of energy, it's fucking hard work. You've got to do all the work yourself. But if we can surrender the mind and all those ideas of shoulds or content creation, or how structured we should be, or how often we should post, or what's a successful post, or get rid of all of that and sit in the stream and let the stream create through us, because there's this natural impulse to share. That's the stuff that I have found has had the biggest impact. It touches the most amount of people because it's the truth of my heart. And if I am doing something from my head, it just does not hold the magic. 95% the same post as one that touched everyone, and it doesn't, because it's not imbued with that purity of my truth in that moment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There are posts that I spent so much time on. In fact, now I recognize it. When I'm spending way too much time on a post, I know it's just
not the
contrived in some way. No. And it will have low engagement, even if it's polished and it's great. Like, I love what I wrote, pictures great, still like kind of mediocre engagement. But when it's something that I feel really good about, and I might even feel a little bit like, that's not the best, this or that, and then it just hits because it has the spark and the magic. And I think that now, especially after, this time of COVID and lockdowns and this whole era we're living through, people are so oversaturated with online activity that just seeing a beautiful photo or reading something cool just doesn't do it for people. It kind of has to have that next level of like medicine being delivered through your words and through your images. And it has to come from that deeper spiritual place.
I love that. That's giving me impact. Lots of energy. Oh my God, that's so fucking true. It's so fucking true. Like, especially at this time, everyone's been online so much more, and we are absolutely saturated. What is that thing that's going to touch people and change people and awaken people? And it's just authenticity, isn't it? It's like getting away from any preconceived ideas of what we should be doing and just being radically truthful and honest about who we are and what we're here to do. And that's fantastic. That's just actually blown my mind in quite a lot of ways. So thank you. So I've seen you just recently move to Costa Rica, which makes me very happy, because I'm someone that has found my physical environment incredibly impactful on my spiritual energy, and I need to be in places like Bali and Hawaii, and I can't exist in big cities. And in fact, someone on my Instagram today, he was DJing in LA, and I saw the big palm trees, and I was like, I feel weird even watching it. Like, I'm so happy that you're there and you're creating, but I know what would happen to me if I was there and creating, and what the energy of the city would do to me. So I'm just curious, what was it that sparked the movement to Costa Rica for you? And did you find any change in your personal practice or your feminine energy?
Well, I'd moved from LA to Denver just last year, and Denver was going to be our main place, and it just wasn't. It felt very isolated. We, of course, everyone was still on lockdowns and people weren't socializing and all of this, but we spent basically a year pretty much at home, and it was just uninspiring. I felt personally like I was just going down just not feeling good about things. And then we started noticing, my partner and I started noticing friends and people who had made the leap to move to these amazing places during quarantine, and were outside with waterfalls and just in the sun and living these beautiful lives. And we were like, oh my God, we're just here in the snow and it's dark. And there had been there was this supermarket shooting in Boulder, which is, was such a sweet little town, and violence was breaking out just all over the US. And that really scared me. Even COVID and those initial lockdown days put me in a place of okay, I'm just going to be at home and I'm going to create, and I'm going to just, make my home this magical little space. But once it became violent with the protests and racism and all of that, it just energetically overwhelmed my senses.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to get into my sensual, very difficult to do the work that I do, which has kind of opened up a whole new level of being able to tap in and get centered even during really difficult times. But it was dark. It was feeling quite dark. And we felt like it was unsafe living in a big city and just kind of in the US in general. So we have friends here in Costa Rica, and One of them in particular has really helped us make this transition. So it was just a yes. From the moment we decided we wanted to do it, all kinds of doors opened and we made the move. And I'm very particular also about my surroundings, especially my home. I want to feel really good and safe and inspired by where I live. And so far, it's been a little bit of a bumpy ride, to be honest, just settling in. But
it is
so
a big
beautiful.
transition.
It's a huge transition, and just being patient with that process. You know, we went big. We sold all of our stuff. We so there was all that, and then we did it. But I'm starting to tap into just the energy of the nature that's all around us, which is abundant. I mean, one of the first feelings I had when I looked out my window was, wow, this is true wealth. Being able to open, like, just wake up, look out the window into the ocean, like with like a sea of green, beautiful trees and flowers and butterflies. And there's a lot of dragonflies here too. And all of that just felt like, I just felt so filled with just fortune, basically. Like the wealth of the earth is the resources and the beauty and the just that like warm breeze and the moisture in the air, and like how beautiful your hair and skin are, because you're just, soaking in all of these elements all day long. So
do you think you could live in Los Angeles again?
No, never. That is a time of the past. It's funny because I grew up there. I have lived other places. I lived in Hawaii for a while. In fact, most of my family has moved to Maui by now. But once I left there, I mean, just last year, like really had like cut the ties of living. I could never go back. It's just, I finally realized stepping away how just desensitizing it is on so many levels.
Yes, that's what I would say too. We tolerate our environment, we adapt to that, and we normalize it. And then when you get that beautiful contrast, because I was a city girl too, through and through, Melbourne, like I loved it. And it took me years to actually unwind. Even though I'd moved to Hawaii, I'd still love a little city hit when I went back. But this most recent time really showed me how I can't sustain myself. I'm so sensitive now as a result of being immersed in nature so much. And I remember going back and saying to my friends, let's go to the park. I just need nature. And this one little park amongst all this city, even the energy of nature was weak. It was trying to compensate for so much. It didn't have that abundant feeling of nature like these tropical places and islands do. But for the women that are listening that are still in metropolitan areas, what were your practices that allowed you to be in your divine feminine even amongst the city when you were still living there?
Well, dance, obviously. Still, I would say that's my top. I mean, that is my top go-to, is just coming into self, tapping into my body. I mean, however you tap into your body is so key. Tapping into your breath. Even now, when I feel anxiety about something, or I catch myself like overthinking about something or other, or even dwelling in the past, I just start focusing on my breath and remind myself that my breath does not exist in the future. It does not exist in the past. It is here, and that's where I am. Touch my body, just be here now. And I find that stress, anxiety just disappear, because usually when we're stressing about something, it is in our mind somewhere in some other time, usually even. And when we just focus on where we are, it's like, oh, I'm just in a room. Okay, the sun is shining outside. Here's my cat, whatever. Like there's actually not much going on usually. So tapping into breath, body, movement, prayer, however that is for you. Having an altar. I don't actually have an altar set up right now. And I feel like for me, a big part of my practice is having just the little sacred objects and that place to kind of go to and center myself. So I really like the practice of being at an altar, dancing in front of an altar, having that space. But yeah, I think anything that brings you into the moment is a really good practice for mitigating anything that is out there, because ultimately even if you are in a busy city, and if you're stressed out by that, if you want to get out, but you're not quite in that position yet, we are in these different locations for a reason. And sometimes it is about what we're contributing to a space and what we are contributing to the people around us for a time. And if we have the intention to shift that, it will shift. But sometimes we're holding it down for a greater energy, to be present somewhere that is chaotic. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles for like 20 years. So I know, and I had plenty of moments where I was just like, oh, I can't stand living here anymore. But then, something would give way and I would come back to self and create something and affect people, and people would affect me, and I would meet amazing people. And, it all makes sense in the end, I think.
When I was called to Kauai, that's when Trump was being elected. And I remember being really scared. That made me feel a sense of unsafety that I'd not known in my own country. As much as I did or didn't agree with the politicians of Australia, I always had healthcare. I always had benefits. There was this baseline sense of safety I didn't have to think about. And then to have moved to Hawaii, to no longer have those safety nets, and then this political thing was going on, I was so scared. And one of my friends on Kauai said, "But Erin, you've been brought to us at this time." And I was like, why me? Why am I here? And she's like, no, it's for us. You can hold a sense of peace that we've not known through this. And that really helped me understand that, sometimes it is my service to go and be there. And sometimes it's my service to be here. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but Melbourne has had the most intense lockdown conditions.
Yes, I am.
250 days they've been indoors. And
oh my God,
I have so many amazing friends in Melbourne who are there at this time, and friends that left Bali to go back to Melbourne at the beginning of this crisis. And like their energy is needed in Melbourne, and I do what I can to support them and to continue loving them and helping feed this beautiful energy that I get to be surrounded by in Bali back to them, so they can continue to do their work. But I too just think no matter what's happening in the world, like in this moment, we're okay. That's how I've been getting through. If my mind starts to go too much out to the bigger picture, where I start to feel helpless and powerless and overwhelmed by what's happening, I just have to bring myself back into this very microscopic moment right here, because this is always okay, and I'm safe. And this is the truth. As much as, like that middle layer of reality where we're very aware of what's happening on the global level is where a lot of stress and anxiety is. But if we can go to the highest level as well, the spiritual level, if we can raise ourselves to the point that everything's perfect, we can find peace out there. You go all the way up, or you come all the way down to this moment. But if you stay in that middle band for too long, it will take its toll on your mind, on your health, on, like you said, your breath, even the way that people breathe differently. And so yes, this moment. I'm also curious, what were the kind of stories that you had when you were growing up as a young girl and discovering your own femininity and what it meant to be a woman? What were the kind of messages that you had picked up from your family or the world around you? What were your original stories?
I would say I have kind of an interesting upbringing, because my mother is a creative and very rebellious black sheep of her family, and broke away and lived this wandering hippie lifestyle with her 2 kids, and we homeschooled. And but so I had that element, and not that she was even that empowered around her sensuality, because now that I look back, we were exposed to this very wild, free kind of life, but she herself was actually quite reserved. And my grandparents were quite conservative. So in terms of that, what I saw was either straight conservatism, or I was seeing things that I was really curious about, right? So I was kind of like curious about things. My mom was kind of herself reserved, but then there's like this general sentiment still that like, women were still very pious. So I think my mother even though she was experimenting with all these things and different lifestyles, she still kept this like very like, don't have sex until you're married kind of sentiment, which was very counter to what we were seeing in our like hippie culture growing up. So I feel like I had a lot of mixed messages, I would say, about that. And also all the women in my family are kind of matriarchal, heavy hitter power women, but they're also a bit in their shadow feminine. So there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of domination over the other women in the family. So yeah, it was interesting, and it's still kind of intense. So my response to that was kind of counter to their own responses of the women who had come above them. So I have to really credit my mother for getting us out of that cycle of living and thinking, which I think gave me a really healthy mindset around other women. So rather than getting sucked into their cycle of manipulation and codependency, I became an observer of them. And I think it's served me in terms of holding space for other women to have their, to come into the work that I do with them and go mad and still have me be like, they're holding space and strong for them no matter what, because I've just held a lot of madness in women growing up. So yeah, it's interesting. I have a very dynamic sense of polarity when it comes to how a woman should be. So on one hand, a woman should be, very like non-sexual and do her work in the world and be good. But then there's also the like madness of woman too. So I've just, I've had to navigate this, and I feel like I have a very different sense of what a woman is. And I think also in the kind of feminine madness of my family, there's also that there's still the message that there's a freedom in being powerful, but they've just experienced such a repressed world that it just hasn't had a very healthy expression. So I feel this is why I also feel like the work that I do and the creative expression I have with my dance really helps mitigate a lot of that madness. It gives me a space where I can be whomever, and express all these different parts of myself, so that when I go out into the world, I can kind of choose how that flow is going to appear a little bit more than just simply reacting to my emotions or feeling overly repressed by the world around me.
It's funny that you say that. I've been considering that exact thing this week, because I said to my man, "Why do you love me?" And he said, "Well, I love the gentleness that you bring. I love your wisdom." He's like, "And I feel safe with your crazy. I trust you're crazy. I understand it." And there's a little part of me that's like, how dare you call me crazy? But I knew what he was saying was like, I have this intense emotional expression that in the past, when I hadn't mastered it myself, could be crazy, could be destructive, could be very painful to others.
Absolutely.
I am so okay with my emotions now, and I have a mastery over my emotions that, I can be fully in my emotions without, it being chaotic or painful to others. Of course, if there's truth in that emotion, it can bring up their own pain, but it's not designed to be painful to others or to use it in that catty, manipulative way. So I've been reflecting on exactly that. Is the feminine inherently crazy? It's so, like, I guess we're so unstructured that is a chaotic state naturally, but we've had that used against us.
Yes, we have. And that is a huge point of, women are just crazy. That is, something that has been very used against us to manipulate us into seeing ourselves as like, oh, I'm feeling too much, or, oh, that, I shouldn't, constantly questioning, creating. I always talk about the patriarchy as creating like a prison system within women, where we have become police of each other and ourselves, where you're questioning your own mind, you're questioning another woman based on these, these unwielded parts of herself. And that's why I think pole dancing, sensual dancing, exploring sexuality, and having containers where you can go mad, where you can let it become creative. Then, you do it, you express it, and then it's energy that has flowed through you and past you, and now you can let it go. And then you can go to your relationships, or you can go to into your society and your world and look at things clearly. And even if you are emotional about something, you are genuinely emotional about that thing, but you don't lose your brain. You can talk about it. You can hold space for other people to respond to you. It doesn't have to be this like, destructive thing.
It's appropriate to what we're experiencing. It's not all the emotion from the past that hasn't been addressed or healed or expressed. It's this truthful emotional expression. And he and I were talking about like our journey into sexuality, how deep we went, how much of my mind he helped me navigate. And he said it's a given with this territory to go this deep into sexuality and to go on this journey together. Of course, I know that it's going to bring up stuff in you, and I have to be equipped to handle that. Like there was part of me that was like, certainly at the beginning, didn't want to be that crazy. I didn't want to have that many triggers. I didn't want to have that much baggage that I had to work through to access these states of my sexuality. But he was like, of course, baby, of course you did. And like, it's part of this path. So I feel really, really grateful to have met a man that was so emotionally intelligent and capable.
Amazing.
It really gave me so much of my own emotional power back by helping me heal and resolve much unresolved emotional stuff, particularly in relationship with sexuality. So
that's such a blessing.
It really, truly is. I will thank him till the day I die for the gift that he gave me.
That's amazing.
So knowing what you know now at 41, what would you, if anything, want to say to yourself at the beginning of this journey as you're just starting to awaken to your femininity? Is there any advice you wish that someone had told
you? Oh my gosh, let me think about it for a moment. I wish that somebody, or I could tell myself that I could just be more gentle with myself and trust the process of unfolding. Just trust, surrender to what's happening and not feel this crazy rush towards. I think for me, I felt a bit like, oh my gosh, there's this incredible path of empowerment that I'm experiencing and that is laying before me, but I felt this rush towards it. And I think in that I wasn't gentle. I mean, it was a very messy birth into this phase of my life. And I think that if somebody had just told me like, hey, you can be a little bit more soft on this path, then I think it may have been more pleasurable rather than more like just so intense. But I think that's also part of my nature, is just.
I was just about to say the same thing. What do you mean we'd do anything other than throw ourselves headfirst into the darkness? Like, really, would we?
I know. Oh my gosh, that is so true. I mean, now like I've evolved in my expression to the point where I listen to music that is very abstract, very spacey, very trippy, and I just disappear into those tunes forever. Like I could do it for hours. And my movements are often like really small too, just like gentle, soft, mostly like almost like qigong, like breathing, grabbing the pole, like just easy little movements. But I mean, it seems simple now what I do almost in my private practice with myself compared to the intense acrobatics that I can do and I used to do. But actually to arrive at this simplicity is an incredible refinement of my entire process, of my mind, of my ability in my body, because I'm so strong from all of the work that I've done. I can like hardly move in certain impossible poses, and it doesn't look like much, but it's like it requires so much center, so much strength. And that is only possible through the years and years of practice that I've done physically. And then to also marry that to breath, and then marry that to this like spiritual awareness, and have that full on flow that I feel happen now in that gentle, very soft, sweet way, is something you arrive at only after having climbed through the mud and the mire and the mountains and thrown yourself off cliffs. And
that's amazing. And I see that happening in yoga a lot as well. You know, like when I first found yoga, and a lot of other people, you just want it all, and you want it intense, and you want the bright lights and all the fun that can come with yoga. And then you get to the point where like, yoga's not asking me to do that. The yoga is asking me to be very still and do much less, to do so much less. And that's something that's really been on my mind.
Yes, do so much less.
Stepping into feminine, do less and have more. That's been my mantra. It's like, how little can I do in my business? How much time can I spend in nature, just being at peace, not with my head in my calendar or my to-do list, but like, how little can I actually do? And like the world opens up in a phenomenal way. But I'm super curious, saying that you trip out on music like that. What's your astrology? What's your sun, moon, and rising?
I'm a Cancer sun and a Scorpio moon and a Scorpio rising.
Oh, wow, girlfriend. I'm a Cancer sun with a Pisces moon, Pisces rising.
Oh my God. Wow. Water signs in the house. I recognize something in you.
Hello, girlfriend. I know you. I know your depth, your watery depths.
Yes.
Well, even deeper than the Pisces. No wonder, because Pisces have that tendency to trip out, which is like, I remember you being a Cancer now, because I said happy birthday, because I was a Cancer too, which again is the sign of the divine feminine as well, which we're very lucky to hold that energy. And my partner had 4 planets in Scorpio. I love Scorpio energy. Like, it's probably my favorite energy out there that I don't have in my own chart. I've only got Jupiter in Scorpio, I think. So there's a fearlessness with Scorpio to face the depths, to the incredibly transformative power of Scorpio, which is why I love my Scorpio man. That's why he could navigate my mind like that, you know. That Scorpionic energy, it's like he's thriving in the depths of my mind, not suffering.
It's not afraid of those depths, that's for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. So if people want to find out more about you or work with you, what are your offerings? How can they reach you?
Well, right now I'm doing private sessions. I'm also doing extended private sessions, because what I do is a practice. So it really makes sense over time. So I am available for an individual private session, but really like 4 sessions is what I prefer to do on the minimum. And then I also offer a special 3-month journey with me. So people can reach me on Instagram at Pole Priestess, or my website, which is polepriestess.com. And I have all the offerings listed there. And of course, you can join my mailing list by going to the website. And now that I'm in beautiful Costa Rica, I'm really excited to start creating more tutorials and just easily accessible small lessons that people can just tap into and visually have a little journey with, like the beautiful sunset or just the amazing greenery. I think just even seeing these things shifts something in our consciousness. So a big part of what I do online and with my instructions is about creating a beautiful situation for people to dive into visually. So whether it's a tutorial or just a video that I'm making, I try to make it less about like, oh, look at me in this beautiful place, as it is like, come and be with me in this beautiful place. Like, let's enter this space together.
That's amazing.
So I'm excited about this new series I'm going to start filming soon.
That's great. So do people need to have their own pole or access to a pole to be able to work with you? Because I imagine you do online work for people if they're in Australia.
I do online work. Well, I offer things around the pole, obviously, Pole Priestess. Come and worship with me at your own pole online. But I also do sensual dance that is without the pole.
Great.
So there's a lot to be discovered in ourselves, just as I was saying, with breath, connecting to body, and then connecting to movement. I find that's a really beautiful entry point into pole, because pole dancing can be a little intimidating in the beginning. People have all kinds of issues around like, oh, I need to be strong, or I need to, have space and all of this for pole. But really, you can tap into these practices and get into that, what I like to call cosmic orgasmic alignment with yourself and with the universe and the space around you, just with yourself. I mean, you're enough. Even for this practice, like, you don't really need the pole, but the pole definitely takes it to the next level, especially if you're wanting to condition with strength and really exert yourself and create these incredible acrobatic shapes with your body. But there's a lot you can do with just you in a room, or you in a bed, or you in a couch.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, we'll put all of the details in the show notes as well, so people can find you easily.
Okay.
But thank you so
Wonderful.
much, my darling. It has been amazing to connect, to hear your wisdom, and I love it. Thank you.
Oh, Erin, thank you so much. I just feel so honored to be on your podcast, and I love the work you're doing. So thank you so much for including me today. I'm so looking forward to listening later.
Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sex and Healing. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. Please come and find me via Instagram. Share the love. Let me know your takeaways. Let me know what you loved, what triggered you, what questions you have. I want to know it all. Make sure you subscribe and share this episode. And until next time, laugh loud and fuck louder. Mwah.